You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die.
And sometimes there's a trend line that I never noticed before and make me go, whoa. This is one of them, all right? This is the Democratic margin among black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of 2012, what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points. That is about half the margin that Obama won them by back in November of 2012. And this, I think, is, when Barack Obama goes in last week when he was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, essentially talking to young black men, he made it seem like it was a Kamala Harris specific problem. This is part of a long-standing trend of young black men moving away from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris is just the latest to face that magnitude of younger black men going towards the Republicans.
That was what's most interesting here is the trend line and where some of the biggest drops happened or already happened in this case. How about black men overall?
How about black men overall? It's part of the same picture. We're looking once again, if younger black men, it looks like the worst Democratic performance since 1960, since JFK versus Richard Nixon. It's the same thing among black men overall. Again, part of a similar trend, but here actually the drop-off isn't as dramatic, right? Barack Obama won him by 85, then you see 71 with Clinton, 69, Biden, basically the same thing, holding steady. But here, again, very, very weak, only a 54-point margin. Now, again, still winning them by a large margin, but considerably lower than what we're used to, certainly considerably lower what we had during the Obama years. The bottom line is Kamala Harris with younger black men and then black men overall putting in historically weak performance for a Democratic candidate.
Is she getting any relief with black women?
All right. So, we're talking about the trend line, right? And black women, look, she's doing better with black women than she is doing among black men. But here, there isn't a trend line almost until we get to Kamala Harris. So again, this is a black margin among black women. Look, Obama won him by 93, very large margin. Clinton won him by 93, a very large margin. Biden did a little bit worse at 85. But then you look here, and you get a 71-point margin. Now, again, these are large margins, but the bottom line is when you're talking about the base of the Democratic Party, you would think that Kamala Harris would do very well among black women based upon history, and of course she would be the first black woman president, but she's actually doing the worst for a Democratic candidate among black women since 1960, if this holds, John.
And again, when you look at the numbers here, whenever you come in, looking at the trends is probably the most important thing.
You got it, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sarah?
The problem they see with black men. The black men are leaving the Democrat plantation, and my, is it poetic that this country will be saved by black men. Steve Bannon told you, and he's 2 weeks out from returning home, and that makes it even more poetic. The one man they felt the need to throw in prison spoke a truth so profound, saw a vision so spot on that even imprisoning him couldn't stop the avalanche that was already on the way, that the black and Hispanic working class men in this country are the future of the Republican Party. They are the future of the MAGA movement. They are the future of America. And it's poetic, where this country's come from, this country's history makes this chapter poetic. Poetic justice. And, but Barack Obama can say what he wants. Fuck Barack Obama, okay? Barack Obama is as much of a bourgeois elitist sellout as you could possibly name. It doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't get any. And people are so, what are, black men, if you black men don't vote for Kamala Harris, it's because you're misogynistic or you're sexist. No, we don't have a problem with black women. This is the whole this is how this is how a narrative starts to collapse on itself. And this is the problem with the left's identity politics movement. I saw it back in 2020 when George Floyd died and they marched through the streets and they said black trans lives matter, and they told black men to move to the back and let the black women and all the other marginalized grievance groups come to the front and lead. They don't want black men leading these communities. They like us dead. They like us gay. They like us in prison. They like us on T-shirts. They like to say our names post-mortem, but they don't want us to lead. They don't want us to lead. And if you do lead and you're a black man, you have to be in lockstep with whatever agenda they have brewing. And right now it's the LGBTQ. I remember saying back when we were in the 2022 midterms, it was me, it was Bannon, it was Jack Posobiec, and we were all on together one day, and there were all these polls coming out about people's disapproval of Joe Biden and the Democrat Party, and why the black community was polling, or the trajectory was on a decline with the black community in terms of approval and so on and so forth. And I said then, the LGBTQ is going to be the death nail. Is it because black men, heterosexual black men, are all deeply homophobic? Is it because they're on the down low and they're actually gay? They just won't come out and say it. Is it because we have some profound hatred for the LGBTQ community, or the desire to want to govern over what people do in their personal lives sexually? Absolutely not. It's not even remotely close. It's not even remotely close. Take me, for example. I've told the story many times. My mother, has been an esthetician my entire life. That's what she's done my entire life. She's, by the way, is voting for Donald Trump and Republican for the first time in her life, and not just because I'm her son. That's part of it, probably a big part of it, but ultimately because she's starting to see the scam, the narrative and the brainwashing is wearing off. It's wearing thin, mostly because of false promises. But my mother was an esthetician my whole life. She worked in the salon, she worked in the spa, and not only did she work in a spa, she worked in a spa on 50th and France in Edina, which is one of the most affluent, upper middle class, upper class, one of the richest places in all of Minnesota. If you're familiar with Minnesota at all, you know Edina has one of the highest net worths per capita in the entire state of Minnesota. And it's a very, white, suburban, kind of yuppie, liberal place to be. You got a lot of wives that are, stay-at-home moms, and their husbands are doing well, and husband, gives wife the credit card or whatever, and she goes to the spa on the weekends and gets the full, pampering for herself, and God bless him. I don't have no problem with that. I don't have no problem with your husband working a great CEO or C-suite job for Best Buy or Target corporate or whatever the case may be, and you stay at home and take care of the kids or see them off to school, and you spend most of your day pampering yourself and prepping the house to come home. We don't have a problem with that. My point is, this is the type of place my mom worked in when I was growing up. And because she worked in that kind of place, it just so happens that there were a lot of LGBTQ people in that environment, specifically men. And I grew up around them, and I guess at the time when you're young, I didn't even know what gay really meant. I didn't even know they were gay. Sure, I could tell they talked a little different. I could tell their mannerisms were a little different, but I never looked at them as weird. I was never taught in my home to look at them as ugly, or to stay away from them, or to think of them like they weren't human or anything like that. And I'm not pandering to the LGBTQ. I'm just telling you the truth about what it's like growing up here in Minnesota. The Twin Cities has a very, very prominent LGBTQ community, and I grew up around it. And never once was there even an emphasis on being gay, or gender identity, or sexual preference, or anything like that. And I grew up in a place where the work environment where my mom was, and I'd go there often. She had a place, an office, or her spot in the salon where she did eyebrows, and she waxed, and she did makeup, and she did facials, and she does all of that stuff. But there were men who did hair. There were men who did nails. There were, and you never even thought about it the way that it's being pushed today. You never even thought about it. It never even crossed your mind like, oh, this person is gay or this person is. So, and my real point saying that is, it wasn't even until Barack Obama got into office when I was already a grown adult that this LGBTQ movement, as it stands today, really started to get that momentum. And I'm not saying that gay rights hasn't been an issue since the 1960s, because it has. But what I'm talking about is the priority and emphasis politically that has been placed on the LGBTQ movement. Barack Obama is maybe solely responsible for that momentum, for that agenda, for that emphasis. And I'm telling you, as a person who grew up in a prominent LGBTQ and pride community here in the greater Twin Cities area, there was never this much emphasis put on the LGBTQ agenda until Barack Obama got into office. And then later on in Barack Obama's term, and especially during Donald Trump's first term, we saw the LGBTQ movement explode. And it came to a tipping point. While everybody else was concerned more about race, the LGBTQ emphasis came to a tipping point with the black community and black men after George Floyd died, and with the rest of the BLM movement. Because here, black men are thinking, you know, after being incarcerated, after you know, going through decades of spells with drugs and on drugs, and you know, some people when they come off of being on drugs for several years, if not more, there's a haze that kind of falls away. And when you're getting high, all you're thinking about is getting high. When you stop getting high and you have a moment to think, you start to ponder other things. And so that was happening at once. And then, yes, Barack Obama was the president. So now black men are paying more attention to politics, and social media's now, you know, emerged as a prominent thing. And everybody gets to have an opinion. So, of course, people are going to have more opinions, and there's going to be more things to have an opinion on, politics being one of them. So at this moment where society's sort of crescendoing and black men are coming into this political this political discussion, and I'm saying your average black man, not that black men haven't been involved in politics, but your average black man is really starting to get involved in politics, en masse. The LGBTQ movement has never been stronger, and here we are. We show up to a demonstration organized by black men, and all we hear is how dangerous and threatening heterosexuality is, and how bigoted straight men can be. And even though we say that it's about white supremacy and racism, you black men have adopted the orthodox heterocentric worldview, and black men are just arriving on the scene for the first time, and we're going, wait a second, what? And Barack Obama's backing what? And a lot of black people don't even see it. There's a lot of black people who still don't see it. But that's why the theme of my Senate campaign was so perfect. The people are coming. It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. It may not even be on November 5th, but the trend is clear. The trend is clear that black men are leaving. And not only black men, but black women are leaving as well. As you saw in the poll, they asked about black women too, because they wanted that divide. You know, like Barack Obama said, they want to spin the narrative or sell you the narrative that black men have just adopted misogyny and are bigoted and really don't see things clearly. Really, you dumb black men don't know anything about what's going on in the world. You don't know shit about politics or culture. That's what they're really trying. That's what they wanted to say. But they can't even say that because black women are starting to trend the same way. The LGBTQ movement has taken such a prominent role in this entire identity politics, collectivist grievance agenda and narrative that it's turned black people off, and for good reason. It wasn't a mistake, and that's what everybody out there has to understand. That's what Steve Bannon saw. That's what Donald Trump has opened up. That's what candidates like me are running on. And it's not DEI. And I want to be clear. Kamala Harris is a DEI candidate because the merit of her ideas, her ability to articulate those ideas, her record, her time in public office, These things do not qualify her to be president of the United States, especially at this moment in American history. I am the opposite of DEI candidate. In fact, the traditional workings of party politics would have me, almost certainly fall on the Democrat side, in the Democrat Party to run as a Democrat. But it's not happening because of the trend. The trend of the American people and black communities and black men and the results we've gotten from the Democrat Party platform and their agenda have not brought the results that it promised or that bring us prosperity, that give us prosperity. And that's why my merit as a candidate signals the future of the Republican Party, signals the future of the MAGA movement, bar none. It's not debatable. It's not an argument. It is a fact. Black men are leaving the Democrat Party. They have seen the true spirit and impulse and motivation of the Democrat agenda. And it's not an alliance. It has nothing to offer them. It has nothing to offer. It offers them. And let's just go back through the history. Barack Obama's on the record admittedly not doing anything specific for black people. He did a lot for the LGBTQ community. He did a lot for a lot of other nations around the world. At one point, the Jewish community was calling him the first Jewish president. He had such an apple in his eye, for a glow in his eye for that lobby. He admittedly did nothing specific for black people. And even if you want to expand his presidency a bit further to get a better view, he missile drone striked more black and brown people than any of his predecessors combined. Barack Obama was responsible for more missile drone strikes on black and brown people than all of his predecessors combined. Killing black folks, okay? Killing black people. If you want to expand black people to everybody else if you want to do it by skin color and melanin, which I don't want to do, there's a difference between the black people who were born and bred in this country, who were American citizens, whose ancestors were descendants are slaves or are descendants of slaves. There's a difference between those black people and everybody else. There just is. But if you want to extend it to that more global racial narrative, fine. That doesn't bode better for Barack Obama whatsoever. In a broader racial narrative, in a broader global racial narrative, Barack Obama ends up looking worse because he killed more black and brown people than all of his white presidential predecessors. And let's move on down the list. We got Joe Biden. Joe Biden's ushered in as the heir to the Barack Obama term and gets a third Obama term here over the last 4 years, since 2020. The referendum on Donald Trump was a third Barack Obama term with Joe Biden as president, and Joe Biden brought us the 1994 crime bill, was locking black folks up hand over fist, black men. And let's be specific, black men. 1994 crime bill, Joe Biden. What did Joe Biden bring us? What did Joe Biden bring black folks over the last 4 years? Let's just be honest. Have things gotten better for you black men out there? Have things gotten better for you black people in general? Let's not even talk about the black men. If, in general, you single black mothers out there, are things better for you when you got to work 2 jobs and you still can't pay the rent? You got to work 2 jobs, you still can't pay the rent. The groceries and your gas are as high as they've ever been. The clothes you got to buy your baby to go to school are as expensive as they ever been. And all they can offer you is some pipe dream about Roe v. Wade. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But my point is, it's not getting better for black women. In fact, they're giving Section 8 housing priority to illegal immigrants before black women. That's a fact. Illegal immigrants have been prioritized in the low income and Section 8 housing before black women. And that's why you're seeing black women start to follow the trend with black men. And and I'll tell you this. Because black women have a culture and a sort of, they have a way in which they communicate. When black women decide that it's over for the Democrat Party, it's going to happen all at once. Oh, it's going to be scary. When black women decide we're done with the Democrats, When that actually locks in, when that actually starts to take root, right now it's just festering, it's just bubbling. But when they say, "Oh, we're done," oh, it's over. Oh, it's over. You're gonna see the Democrats get real. You're gonna see this globalist establishment and these elites get real desperate when that happens, and it's coming. You can already start to hear it when Kamala Harris got and they try to go after Janet Jackson. I mean, it's and she ain't gonna be the last one. They could make kind of jokes about Janet Jackson if they want to and talk about how, the trauma of the Jackson family and Michael Jackson and all the issues that he went through and whether or not the Jacksons really wanted to claim being black in the first place or whatever the case. Look, if you're a black family that was a descendants of slaves or foundational black Americans from the Midwest, a place like Indiana, we here in the Midwest as black folks know what that means. Okay, you're black. I don't care who you choose to date. I don't care what you say in the media. You're black, okay? And what the Jacksons contributed to Black America is unquestionable. It's almost unimpeachable in some ways. But when black women decide to go, they're going all at once. What has Joe Biden done in the last 4 years for black people in general? Nothing. Nothing. We own less property than ever before. We got higher rates of mental illness than ever before. The drug abuse and the overdoses in our young people is worse than ever before. The violence, despite the lies they want to tell you from the self-reported data of the same law enforcement agencies that you all say are corrupt. That catch-22, that part right there, the same law enforcement agencies you say you can't trust because they're corrupt have self-reported data on the rate of violence in this country, and I can look outside my window. I can tell that it's more violent than it's ever been. I can see it. I can see it. I can hear it. And what's worse is where the violence has subsided. It's subsided because technology has gotten so good in giving people substanceless shit with no substance that they're too preoccupied jerking off to be violent with one another. And that's not a proper solution. That's the other thing black people got to understand. If and where violence has, because you can't have both narratives be true at the same time. You can't have the Democrats telling the entire country and world that a Second Amendment has its dangers because the prevalence of guns in America is the predicate for black on black crime, but also the technology has gotten so good that crime is lower than ever. You can't have it both ways. That just doesn't work. Where things have gotten less violent, they have not gotten less violent for the right reasons, and that is important. The right reason for things to be less violent is young people are more educated than ever. Young people are more interested in innovation than ever before. They're more interested in entrepreneurship than ever before. Young people are more involved in community thinking, thinking about themselves as a unit of a community and how to build a community up the right way. And some of that has to do with their morals and their ethics and their values, which obviously stems back to a Judeo-Christian ethic and worldview and system of faith in some cases. Not to say that's the only way you can be a good person, because I do believe that there are many Christians in this world who are much more morally and ethically corrupt than people who don't believe in God at all. I do believe that there are some out there, no doubt about that. But the point is, we see that the sharp decline of the black community just happens to follow a sharp decline in overall Christianity. I'm just throwing that out there. There's not an argument there. It's not conjecture. It's not an opinion. It's a statistical fact. The amount of people in the country who identified as Christian overall back in the 1940s saw better marriage rates, better rates of independent businesses, self-owned, black-owned entrepreneurship and businesses, property ownership, and so on and so forth. So, this ain't an argument. The sharp sharp decline in the overall prosperity of Black America has followed the trend of the decline of Christianity as well. My point being is that there are markers, cultural markers, societal markers that would be good as reasons for a decrease in violence, but having technology be so uh, so addictive that people just don't have the time to really have or the time or emotional investment to be as violent with one another is not a good thing. And that's what's happened over the last 8 years for the Black community for the most part. What has Joe Biden done for us? Nothing. 1994 crime bill. And on top of it, now he brings us war and he brings us inflation. And now, now, when it's all said and done, you give us Kamala Harris and you tell us we got to vote for Kamala Harris or we're not Black. We're misogynists. Kamala Harris locked up more Black men than Amy Klobuchar did. And if there's one thing the two have in common, it's that. They love locking up Black men. And they love locking up Black men on petty charges. They like to be seen as tough on crime by their white constituents. And I wonder who those constituents are. I mean, if we're just talking about it honestly, who are those constituents? Who are the constituents in California that would elect Kamala Harris to the positions that she held there in California that would look favorably on a tough on crime attorney general record? It ain't Republicans. It's not Republicans. Here in Minnesota, it is Republicans. And there is I was looking at the polls the other day when I was on Truth Hurts with Action for Liberty, and we were going over the latest poll numbers from the Star Tribune, and it shows me up everywhere else but Hennepin and Ramsey County. I'm up a point with the independents. But overall, Amy Klobuchar has 99% Democrat support as to where I only have 87% Republican support. Now, the 87% is much, much higher than her previous opponents, almost by double digits. But there is still that 12% of Republicans that think Amy Klobuchar is great, and it doesn't escape me that part of the reason they think Amy Klobuchar is great is because when she was a lead prosecutor for Hennepin County, she was seen as tough on crime. And I explained this the other day, and I don't want to get sidetracked. You know what? I'll save that for a moment. Point is, Kamala Harris isn't doing anything for Black people either. She didn't do anything for Black people when she was in California. She's not going to do anything she hasn't done anything for Black people when she was there under Joe Biden. And she's openly said she's not going to do anything for Black people. She's going to do something that helps all people. If it helps all people, it will help Black people, which is just a pacification to say, I'm not really that interested in specific policy regarding Black America. Which for all of you out there who don't think race is important, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that the Black community has become a ball and chain on this country, which, in my opinion, I think is somewhat true. And it hurts my heart to see that our young Black people in this country don't do math or read at a grade level. That is a ball and chain on your country. The undereducation, the miseducation, the lack of education in any community is going to be a net negative for the overall society or culture or whatever. That's not arguable. That's not debatable. It's a fact. The less education people have, the less real education people have, the less real skills, applicable skills people have, it's going to be a net negative on the country, on society. That's a fact. Okay. And right now, and under Democrat leadership, for example, Black people have never been more uneducated. Now we got more Black women than ever enrolling at college, but a lot of these Black women are leaving school and they didn't read or do math at a grade level when they graduated. That's the truth. I mean, we can just look at the statistics and see that there is an epidemic. And if we talk about something, something having a marker or a health implication, you could argue that the real health crisis in this country is the fact that Black people are so undereducated. If there's one marker that has an implication on the life expectancy or quality of life, it's education. And we have been undereducated and miseducated by the Democrat-led education system for decades, for generations. The proof is right there. It's not an opinion. And if we want to get even more granular, the fact of the matter is 75% of the K through 12 teachers in this country are white liberal women. And that's exactly who Kamala Harris's constituency is. And she knows it, and black men are starting to know it. That's the reality. Kamala Harris's constituency are white liberal women and men and women from other demographics, from other demographical groups that align themselves with the ideology and thinking of white liberal women who were able to force feed that ideology down the pipeline all the way to kindergartens through the education system. That's who Kamala Harris is. Kamala Harris is running on the byproduct of a broken education system that has undereducated and miseducated black people through white liberal women. And it's not an argument. That part ain't debatable. Like I said, I'll say it again. 75% of the K through 12 teachers in this country are white liberal women. You all are responsible. You all are responsible, at least in part, for the failures of the education system. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And you can try and say, oh, well, it's the families or the parents. And don't get me wrong. I agree. And trust me, I spend a lot of time up at schools, junior highs, high schools. I spend a lot of time at some of these schools, and I know well how broken some of these homes are and how ill-prepared some of these young people are to even get a good education from starting at home. I'm not saying that it's all white liberal women's fault. But what I am saying is this. When you take broken homes and broken communities and people who have, deep-seated trauma on a number of fronts, multiple fronts at once. When you take the crisis of mental health and the drug use and all the other things that have encapsulated the black communities under Democrat rule, let's be honest, because all of these black communities are run by Democrats and they have been for a long time. But when you take that and you mix that with an education, a public education and curriculum that's not fruitful and substantive, that doesn't really spark the imagination and speak to the necessity to challenge the status quo at a fundamental level on a truthful basis, of course they're dropping out. Of course they're not paying attention because what you're teaching is corny. It's weak. It's milquetoast. It doesn't. And then what's happened is we've tried to supplement. We've tried to supplement our education with a fake sort of deep meaning. It's that, and that's what wokeism is. And that's what, they've gone out of their way now to create this elaborate, sort of pseudo-intellectual field of study about gender. And as you can just see it on the young black men's faces. It's only going to get worse from here. And you can see it on the young white men's faces too. You can see it on young men's faces. As soon as they start to go to this pseudo-intellectual gender theory, queer theory, people are checking out left and right. They're going, and they might tolerate it because, they'll get in trouble at school if they don't, toe the line. But the reality is they're checking out. They were already checking out. We've been checking. We were checking out before because one thing about education, I'm going to say this and we'll move on. The one thing about education is the spirit and the intellect are inextricably linked. Understand this. This is why you people need to slow down in trying to do away with religion and spirituality and the metaphysical. The human spirit and the intellect are inextricably linked. So anytime you try and play fast and loose with the truth, anytime the spirit of what you're trying to teach somebody isn't genuine, you are going to have a result that's either decadent, that ends up being chaotic and corrupt, or people will just check out. And that's why you hear a lot of testimony from people that they learned much more when they left school than they did when they were in school. It's not the content of what was taught. It's the spirit of it. The spirit of American education is not genuine. And it's not just for young black students. It's not just for the inner cities. It's not just at public schools. That's a problem that we have with education writ large. However, the results that happen when you mix that with what black people are dealing with in their communities is catastrophic. And that's who Kamala Harris represents. She represents a continuation of that status quo. Those are her constituents. And black men, they feel that. They sense that. These young black men, they sense that. They understand what's being done. And they may not be able to put their finger on it, but the human intuition has a way of brilliantly sort of identifying where and when something is off. You know, and maybe they don't sense it well enough to formulate a worldview, that has enough applicable intelligence to keep themselves from getting in bad situations. What I'm saying is a young black man may still be stupid enough to think materialism is so worthwhile and so, that materialism is so necessary that he's willing to throw his life and his future away to do something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, that he knows is wrong. That may be. But still something, in his intuition. And that's what I'm saying. These young men, they're not leaving school. They're not reading at a grade level because their parents are terrible parents. That's part of it. But if the education actually spoke to them in a way that was real, in a way that was substantive, and it wasn't all this fleece of the American corporations trying to train young men to be workers instead of agrarian farmers and shopkeepers, maybe they'd be interested despite what they're going through at home, but they're not. Look at me, for example. I could have easily ended up some shot out gang member on drugs, going from club to club on the weekends and hopping from girl to girl. And I could have easily been that. Easily. You don't know how easily I could. And I could have been damn good at it too. And I probably would have done just enough to be at the height of it, but still survive, because smart people do that until, eventually it catches up with you and the hammer comes down on. Nobody can escape that for the most part. There are some people who do now. In fact, I'm not going to sit here and, fantasize the thing. There are some people who do. But most people don't. Most people don't make it through that. But I could have easily been that. But my mother taking me to Borders bookstore on the weekends and becoming an avid reader and an enthusiastic learner, somebody who was enthusiastic and who found value and appreciation and excitement for learning about history, about the English language, about politics, about culture, about ancient culture. Being introduced to those things led me to a spot in my life where when the fork was there in the road, I was more pulled down this road than that road. And you don't know how close it was. And that's part of the reason why people like Amy Klobuchar and these other liberal elitists reject my candidacy. Because for all of their talk about black lives and black men and giving people second chances and not prosecuting petty crimes and so on and so forth, they don't want to see any of those people in positions of leadership. No, any of these ex-cons, go ask them, do they want to see any of these ex-cons who they threw in jail through prosecutorial misconduct? Go ask them if they want to see any of those people run for office. They don't. They don't want that any more than your typical Republican or conservative would want it. And there is another place where the uniparty sort of has a similar thinking, right? Is that there's this high society that deserves to be able to lead, and all of you plebiscites, all of you plebes, all of you deplorables, as Hillary Clinton called them, all of you are good for nothing except buying shit, paying for shit, killing each other. That's what we've gotten from black people, and that's who Kamala Harris represents. That's the ideology she represents. Look at her life. Look at her husband. A high-powered attorney that's worked for Walmart and everybody else. He's an attorney, and there's nothing There's nothing more corrupt in this country. There's nothing more corrupt in this country than the justice system and the legal system and the legal profession and the bar associations and the judges. And it's been corrupt for a long time, and we all know it. And we can look back to documented history and evidence that shows us that very fact. It just doesn't have to do with Donald Trump and the lawfare that's broken out now. This has been going on for a long time. Just so happens it's becoming more overtly political in its nature. But the corruption in the legal system has been around forever, since time immemorial, since the days of Christ, and long before that. You can go all the way back to Exodus, where Moses, accidentally murders one of the Egyptian guards, and the Pharaoh says, "Hey, I'm what I say goes. I'm the night and morning sun. I'm the night and morning star. If I say it, it shall be." And even in that story, Moses felt a sense of shame and a sense of real, where he goes, nah, man, I got to go get right with God. And something's now drawing me back to my roots and my people. And you just saying it's okay is not good enough. Those are the early examples of what would become the framework for the Western idea of justice. So for all you atheists out there and all you people who repudiate Christianity and the Bible, understand your ideas of human rights and justice would not exist unless 11th and 12th century lawyers look back at Scripture as a way to create a legal framework for law and order and justice, rules. And that is what happened. And my point in saying that part is Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, what do they all have in common? What they all have in common is, as a political movement, they reject the importance of Christianity. They reject the importance of let's say, morality in general. They kind of have a moral relativism about them. They have a technology-driven moral relativism. That kind of rejects the importance of humanity in general. Even their conversation about climate change is the granddaddy of all tales. Because their conversations about climate change, while it claims that the point is to try and save the planet for future generations, the kicker there is they're actually promoting that future for those generations comes at the expense of the very humans that would be there to experience it. Are you feeling? Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? The very climate change narrative that they want to be number one on the list, numero uno, Hurricane Helene breaks out. We got American citizens trapped, lives destroyed, families broken, torn apart, death, destruction. And they want to make it about climate change. That's why black people are leaving the Democrat Party. Because the same way they use George Floyd is the same way they use Hurricane Helene. You understand that? I hope you all understand that. I hope you all can make that connection. The same way they use George Floyd is the same way they use Hurricane Helene for their own political agenda, for their own narrative and propaganda, for their own ambitions. And people are not stupid. They may play stupid. They may be too busy to see it the first time when it's done, but now social media has given people a playback reel where everything will be recorded and there for future viewing. So you can't get away with what you used to be able to get away with, even as the machine, even the mainstream media and the machine has had to evolve in their sophistication in how they deliver the propaganda. Because people are watching. More people are watching than ever before. And they have a deep distrust for the information they've been given. Every time I go back and play the Rachel Maddow 50-second clip of her shilling for the vaccine, saying the vaccine will make you, impervious to COVID. No, it didn't. That was a lie. And she had no scientific basis to say that whatsoever. And they allowed her to put that on, and they allowed her to be the mouthpiece and justification to cancel and censor anybody who said, wait a second, there's no scientific evidence of this. And never forget, they said the scientific consensus. So when these Democrats again trying, and this all connected now. See, because all of this played out at once. Never forget, Don Lemon went on CNN Live and said it's time to start shaming these people. This is when Chris Cuomo was still in the good graces of the left mainstream media, and him and Don Lemon were going back on, we're on every night during the pandemic, going back and forth as the Bert and Ernie of the mainstream movement. During the pandemic, this was never forget. And Don Lemon said, we should be, and I saw Chris Cuomo's face when he said it. Right then, I knew when Don Lemon started going off about shaming these people, there was something in Chris Cuomo that switched. There was something in his eyes that said, I'm in a position, and I've been in that position before. All of us who speak a lot in the public, or we've, been in certain rooms, or we're on television a lot, or we do our radio show, and, you get caught up in the momentum of the times, the zeitgeist. We're caught up in the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. And you get to talking about one thing, and it takes a while for you to be able to go back and reflect on what you really think about it in order to adjust or change that position, in order to course correct. But I saw it then. There was something in Chris Cuomo's eyes that was like, that don't sound right. He even challenged Don Lemon on, I think it was live. He's like, we don't want to shame him. You don't mean we want to shame him. And Don Lemon doubled down because he has that sort of, raging, manic, self-aggrandized, pompous, homosexual energy about him. He's flippant. He's sassy. He's obnoxious. And he is. No, we need to start shaming them. And he was talking about black people because black people were the most unvaccinated. So when you Democrats say, well, why are black men? It's not misogyny. We don't want to be forced to take a vaccine that does not have proper experimental evidence. Why would we? I mean, how stupid do you think we are? The answer is real stupid. Because again, you know those proficiency rates. You know what the proficiency data says about how undereducated we are. So you're not offended that we don't want to take the vaccine. You're more offended and insulted that we would have an opinion whatsoever because you view us as uneducated. That's Joyanne Reed's pitch. She views black men as uneducated. She said right there on live TV, black men wouldn't even know what inflation was until Republicans started saying the word. They regard us as uneducated. They regard black men as uneducated, and black men are tired of being talked to like we're stupid. And we may not be great at algebra. We may not be able to take a standardized test at a top level, but we have enough common sense to know that we shouldn't be trusting vaccines that aren't properly tested. Yeah, we were smart enough to know that, and we were right. And Kyrie Irving was right. And you can say what you want about him. You can bring up the flat earth or whatever. That's all good. People aren't perfect, but give credit where credit's due. That young man was right about that vaccine. And the rest of these NBA players are walking around right now thinking to them, whether they want to say it or admit it or not, they're walking around thinking right now, why did I take that vaccine? Now, some of them were smart too. Some of them were buying those vaccine cards off the street, or the vaccine paperwork, right? The proof of vaccination. They were purchasing it, which they could do because they had enough money to do it. But some of them took the vaccine, and right now they're regretting it. And a lot of people out there in the country are regretting it. And that's there too underneath it's not just the economy. It's not just the LGBTQ. Never forget the pandemic and what happened there and how people were treated for their skepticism is completely at the feet of the Democrat Party and the liberal mainstream media. This is who Kamala Harris is, and it's not just her. It's not just her. We all know that on the policy, on the issues, her hiding from interviews in the media, her getting in front of the media and cackling more than she's talking about substance and trying to laugh her way to a victory. We all see that. The bigger issue, the bigger problem for the Democrat Party is they actually have sort of conceded that Kamala Harris is the amalgamation of the Democrat platform, of the Democrat platform. They've conceded that she's an amalgamation of the platform, of the party. Well, you picked a terrible representative. That's part of the problem. That's a big part of the problem. If you're going to put somebody out in front who's going to be the amalgamation of your worldview and your political platform, make it somebody who can actually articulate the ideas in a way that's interesting, at least interesting. If not substantive, if not, if not in a way that people can, that resonates, that really resonates, at least have somebody who can make it interesting. Barack Obama was so eloquent. He was so articulate that he was interesting because we hadn't had politicians or public figures, even for that matter, who were that articulate, who could speak that well. The ability to speak and the sort of sophistication and intellectual manner that Barack Obama spoke was something that was only reserved for the highest levels of academia, which Barack Obama came from. And so at the time when Barack Obama hit the scene, that part of his brand, on top of the fact that people, as technology has risen and the education has gone downhill, people have an aversion to public speaking in general. I think that's probably one of the number one anxieties of modern society, at least modern American society. People do not want to speak in public. People are very reserved and shy and anxious about getting up in front of a crowd and speaking. So to find somebody who could speak that well had a draw to it from a very deep cultural place. He was interesting. It wasn't even what he was saying was that interesting. He wasn't really saying anything that interesting. In fact, when you go back now and listen to it, there was so much contradiction in what he was saying, especially juxtaposed to what he ended up doing. It's almost laughable that we believed it. But we believed it because there was a huge, a huge hole in the human intellect, in the human spirit. There was a huge void in the human spirit that craved a leader who could articulate things at a certain level. And of course, it was a black man, and it harkened back to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Baldwin and all these other black figures that became icons, cultural icons during the Civil Rights Movement. And despite the Al Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons and a few of the others far in between that came after those icons, they didn't really deliver. They didn't really deliver the same substance or eloquence or articulation and intelligence. They couldn't deliver it. So Barack Obama was primed to be this, a good amalgamation of the Democrat platform. He was primed up for it. Look who they give you now. Look who they give you now. It's funny. It's almost like they're trying to give you a female version of Barack Obama. But she just doesn't have that it factor. And don't get me wrong, Kamala Harris is a very pretty woman, okay? She's good looking. She's not ugly, okay? Her spirit is ugly. Her dishonesty is ugly. But she's not ugly looking. So she fits the bill from an appearance standpoint, from a look standpoint. But nothing she says has any substance. It doesn't even start to pretend to be substantive. It's just a laugh here and a laugh there. And then when I try and get real serious, I actually say a bunch of nothing, and everybody can tell I'm putting on an act. Everybody can tell I was put here to be a puppet. And that's what black people are rejecting. Black people don't want any more puppets. And the question going forward is, will they want somebody like me? who's all signal and no noise, who's going to give it to them as real and as raw as they possibly can handle. So real and so raw, you might be turned off by me at first. It's so real and it's so raw and it resonates so deep. It might feel like an attack at first when you watch Please Call Me Crazy. You might be like, oh shit, he's talking to me. Like I was saying this past Saturday on War Room, I was hosting War Room. I said, this epidemic of cuckery in this country for American citizens is like a guy who's past his sexual prime. And he's got to pay. In order to go on a date, in order to have a romantic life or a sexual life, he has to pay for it. And he's paying through his teeth. He's paying here, there, everywhere. He's paying all over the place. And I just came out and said, she doesn't love you. She doesn't love you, dude. And I got all kinds of messages and emails this past weekend saying that was the funniest shit I think I've ever heard, but it kind of hit me because we have a huge boomer audience. And a lot of that boomer audience is past their sexual prime and their romantic prime. And they understand if you haven't had some long-term relationship like a marriage or, whatever the case may be, that has been there through, over years and years, and you have to be out on that dating scene right now as a man who's past his sexual prime, you're paying for it. And that's what Marissa Simonetti was saying. You can say what you want about her, but the reality is she's speaking to a very profound observation and reality of our culture. Is there are all kinds of prostitutes. Okay, there are prostitutes who are, one-to-one exchange. I'm going to go lay on my back for some money, and that's what it is. But there are prostitutes of many different kinds. Look at OnlyFans. If you think you're on OnlyFans and you're not a prostitute, you're lying to yourself. If you think your criteria for dating a man is not based on who that man is inside and what his values are and what his beliefs are and his integrity and his and what he stands for, and you think your criteria or standard of a man should be how much money he makes, or more importantly, how much money he can spend on you, you're a prostitute. If you're lucky enough, and it's vice versa, the same thing, vice versa. I'm not saying it swings one way. That swings both ways. It just so happens we have a culture that's caught in this weird, sort of paradox where women want to be independent if they're single, but in any of their visions of having a man, it's a man who can provide this lifestyle for them. Or they want some omnisexual man who's just there as basically a sexual entertainment is what it really is. You understand what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm saying. The women who want to be independent, they want to be independent if they're single. But in whatever plans or vision they have in their imagination of a long-term relationship in the future or a family, it's always with a man who can provide financial security. Unless their relationships or vision or desires with a man are explicitly sexual in nature, and then they'll take anybody, which is how a lot of these women have ended up with guys who end up coming out and being gay, and they didn't know about it, and they're shocked and so on and so. But you didn't. You knew. You know he was gay. That doesn't shock you. You were cool with it. In fact, you probably liked it at one point. It was probably interesting. It probably was. I don't want to get too deep and down into that rabbit hole, but I do want to talk about that here to end, because I think it's important that the sexual culture. But yeah, you liked it. You liked it. You and him, you were going to the swinger parties, and you were hitting and you're American citizens and you're grown. That ain't got nothing to do with me, and that ain't my business. That ain't the business of the government. That ain't the business of the United States Senate or any other politicians or local government. But my point is, there are implications. The implications are women have been culturally, systematically manipulated into thinking that their political power rests upon this sexual dynamic. That's what it is. With the sexual politics have become the calling card of the Democrat Party. That's what I'm really trying to say. when they can't deliver substance, when a Kamala Harris can't stand up there and talk about self-governance, when she can't stand up there and talk about constitutional rights and how legislation can actually improve constitutional rights while also solving some of the root issues that American people face with their quality and cost and standard of living, when she can't do that, the Democrat Party as a whole, through her, resorts to sexual politics. In fact, her candidacy in general is a propaganda of sexual politics, and they're not even shy about saying it. That's what's funny about it. They're not even shy in saying it. They're telling you. Barack Obama's telling you. If you don't vote for it, it's because you're sexist. If you don't vote for it, it's because you're misogynist. No. If we don't vote for it, it's because she doesn't even speak as good as you do, Barry. And if we could go back and not vote for you, knowing what we know now, we would go back and not vote for you despite how well that you spoke and how well you delivered the message. If a lot of black people today could go back and cast a vote again, we wouldn't vote for Barack Obama based on what we know now. But at least with him, he had some articulation and a way to present that actually could trick you. She's not tricking us, Barack. That's the problem. You're not seeing it. You in the arrogance of it, what you actually the self-aggrandizement of it is profound. Because what Barack Obama is really saying is to you niggas out there, and I'm just going to be frank with you, what Barack Obama's really saying to you niggas out there is, I was so articulate, I achieved so much, I should be able to vouch and co-sign for this idiot, and you should listen to me. That's how high up he thinks he is in society. You niggas, nigga, I was the president of the United States of America. I was the first black president of the United States of America. I'm smart. I'm articulate. I went to law school. I was in the Senate. I've achieved. So I live in Martha's Vineyard. You niggas could only dream of living in Martha's Vineyard. with the inflation rates and the cost of first buyer, first homeowners, the costs for first-time homeowners, the housing market out there, the interest rates. You niggas could only dream to live in Martha's Vineyard during a climate crisis where the oceans are rising. Climate insurance. You niggas could only dream to be where I'm at. I'm so high up in society. You should vote for Kamala on the basis of my vouch and co-signature alone. And I don't think there's anything more arrogant than that. That's why you're seeing black men say, oh, fuck you. Fuck you, Barry. Fuck you. You should have delivered. See, what would have been prudent, what would have been leadership is, had your ass delivered. No. See, had your ass delivered for black folks. Had your ass delivered for black folks. I mean, categorically, irrefutably, factually, statistically, had your ass delivered for black folks, you'd be able to come and co-sign Kamala Harris with no problem. Even though we see that she's stupid, even though we see that she doesn't fit the bill, that she's not really bringing anything substantive to the table, if you, Barack Obama, had delivered for Kamala Harris, you'd be able to come to the podium today and vouch and co-sign for Kamala Harris, and we would have no problem with it. Because we could always fall back on the idea of, at least if Barack delivered and Kamala is his hand-picked choice, then he'll still have influence. And if he feels like, if he wants to deliver something, it can be delivered through her. You ain't delivering shit through her. You ain't even pretending like you're trying to deliver some shit through her. You another high society, wine society, limousine liberal, riding around, going to meet with the George Soroses and the Alex Soroses of the world, getting invited to your eyes wide shut parties, where John Legend and his little cackling woke wife are snickering about some type of sexual experience they had with you. I'll play that on the outro. We'll play that on the outro because I'd like to know what that was all about. Since we're going Diddy and Epstein, and that's got to be the focus. And we're not going to talk about forever wars. We're not going to talk about inflation and interest rates and the economy and the cost of living for these single black moms. We're not going to talk about that. We want to talk about sexual exploits. Okay. Well, I want to go back. Did anybody ever get an answer from Barack Obama about what John Legend and what's her name, Chrissy Teigen or whatever? Did anybody get an answer about what they were joking about on the red carpet that one time? I'm gonna play you the clip at the end. You know, so that's what you were busy doing. And I'm not saying if you're the president of the United States, you can't get your swerve on and have a sex life. I'm not saying that. That's ridiculous. People who expect that of their politicians, that's part of the whole problem. People expect their politicians to be to not be human, to be full-time career sort of fixtures and glass models, projections of all of our own inadequacies. That's what we really want our politicians to be. And that's part of the reason why the whole thing is fucked up. That's part of the reason why y'all believed in Barack Obama the first ways. He was a projection of our own inadequacies, especially in the black community. Barack Obama was an example, was a symbol, was a projection of our own self-doubt and our own inadequacies. So I'm not saying Barack Obama can't get his swerve on, and whatever he's doing, that's his business. He's an American citizen. But then don't be coming back saying Donald Trump is wrong for being with Stormy Daniels. And I'm not saying that he was, but that's certainly what they're trying to push. And that brings me to my last and final point. See, the thing that pisses me off the most about this whole culture, let's talk about the culture. Because I'm a nigga who grew up on a block where they sold crack, okay? And I know it makes you white liberals so angry to see a nigga who grew up on a block where they sell crack, where they sold crack. It makes you so angry to see that we would even dare to think we could hold a seat in the United States Senate. I know, Amy, but I'm coming. I'm coming. You all, the people are coming. I'm coming. You don't realize what's happening yet. You're not going to realize it till it clunks you right over the head. And it's the clunking has begun right now. When you look at Kamala Harris, she's half the support of what Barack Obama was when he won. Double digits less of support since Joe Biden ran in 2020. There's a reason. We're starting to see it. The people are starting to see it. They got a belly full of it. The last thing you want to see is a nigga who grew up on a crack block say no to materialism and superficial gratification. It's the last thing y'all want to see. But you got to deal with me anyway. And so let's talk about the culture. The thing that pisses me off the most is all these black celebrities that they find who will stand up at the podium and support the Democrat Party for all of the professional perks, the professional and economic perks that come with it. And you all know you're doing it. And we can all see you. And just start taking names. Get a legal pad out. Get you a pen. You black folks out there, you get you a legal pad and a pen at home. This is being a citizen. This is being a member of a community. You get you a legal pad. You get you a pen out at home and you start writing down the names of every single bourgeois Negro who stands up there and tells you to vote for a party that is going to systematically devalue your citizenship. And you keep adding to that list because I know you're not going to see them all at once. They sprinkle them here and there for every area of the country. Just like in Detroit, Michigan now, you know, they're having a problem with black men in Detroit, Michigan because even the trap gangster rappers are saying, hold on, we're voting for Donald Trump. So now we're going to send lighting his loafers Magic Johnson, who had a great game. People kind of compared me to Magic, being a big point guard, 6'8", 6'9", heavier, 260, 250, 270. I was 270, but can pass the ball. And you know, so Magic Magic's an incredible basketball player. Can't take anything away from him. You can't do one without you can do one without the other. We can say LeBron James is quite possibly the most successful basketball player of all time, with the best body of work. He's played for 20 seasons. It is unbelievable what he's doing. That going into his 21st season, his 20th season, whatever it is, I don't know. I'm not keeping track like that. but it's up there. He was 18 when he came in the league. He's 40, going on 41 now, so 22 seasons or something like that. And the man is still playing starter minutes. And he's still producing at the top of the league. He's not just on a team, a locker room guy, a veteran who's contributing here and there. He is the best player on the court when he steps on the court still. From a production standpoint, that's incredible. We can say that and acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that. That's rational thought, first principles. LeBron James, what he's doing is amazing. But he's a sellout when it comes to politics. Easy. It's simple. I could love watching him play. In fact, I could cheer for him when he plays. But that don't mean I'm going to listen to him when it comes to politics. That doesn't mean when Steph Curry, another great player, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris. Steph Curry, best shooter of all time, love his game. What he's been able to achieve is incredible. If young people want to be athletes and they want to look to a Steph Curry for work ethic and repetition and how to really hone in on a skill, Steph Curry is incredible. I'm not listening to him about no politics. I'm not. Nah. The same goes for Magic Johnson. I'm sorry, Magic Johnson. I'm not listening to you about no politics, bruh. Sorry. You want to talk to me about franchises, about small businesses and franchises? Good. You had a very successful string of small businesses. That's all good. You want to talk to me about being on television and doing a little bit of commentating? That's all good. You want to tell me about being in the front office of an NBA organization? That's all good. You got some credibility there. You got some merit there to speak on your successes. But you want to talk to me about politics? Nah, can't do it. Can't do it. And as a matter of fact, when I start to draw up this list and I write the names down and I look at what they're trying to push and promote, there's two options. Either A, they're actually ignorant, or B, they're in on it. And they either don't know what they're actually saying or the implications, or they've made a conscious decision that whatever they get out of it is more important than the truth. And that does speak against your character. That does speak against who you are as a person and your integrity. And then, even if you have been successful in the theater business or the Starbucks business, I'm questioning whether or not I'm listening to you. Like Mark Cuban, for example. Successful businessman. Okay, but all money ain't good money. What you stand for, what you're willing to attach your name to, what you're willing to push in terms of propaganda and lies, I got to start to figure in when I assess your overall integrity. And Mark Cuban's another one. But let's stick to Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan, they're having a problem with black men, and we know that's a swing state, so they're sending Magic Johnson to try and shore up the black vote. And my problem with the culture is, when are you niggas going to stop following these celebrities? When are you Negroes going to stop following these celebrities one way or another about important shit? If you want to dress like a celebrity, be my guest. If you want to listen to a celebrity's music, be my guest. If you want to support and be a fan of a celebrity, you want to buy their music, you want to buy their posters or merchandise, be my guest. You want to follow them on Instagram, be my fucking guest. You want to take marriage advice and relationship advice from these fucking yahoos? You want to take political advice from these fucking yahoos? From Magic, what the fuck makes Magic Johnson credible on politics? He can't explain to you what the post-World War II Democratic Liberal Order is, or he won't. He won't talk about the Bretton Woods Conference. He doesn't know the implications of foreign markets or international markets and the volatile nature of the United States dollar and the effect that it has on stocks and bonds. He won't talk to you about the implications of the manufacturing base that used to be right there in Detroit, Michigan. Pull me down a clip of Magic Johnson when he goes on this Detroit, Michigan tour and show me where he's going to talk about Detroit, Michigan having once been, when he was actually a kid, in fact, having once been the sole source of America's greatness, the manufacturing base we had in places like Detroit, Michigan, where young black people were able to get jobs, where they learned skill training on the job and were able to move up in their income on the job and buy a small business or have a job and be working on their own small business. Tell me and show me when Magic Johnson's going to say that in the next 3 weeks. I guarantee he's not. And on that basis alone, Magic Johnson's discredited when it comes to politics. You ain't going to talk about no real shit, boy. And I'm calling you boy because you got a boy-like mentality. You got a childlike mentality. You got a childlike, whatever you need to do to get what you want out of life, that's what the fuck you're going to do. Doesn't matter about the rest of us, so don't think you can come speak on behalf of black men in the black community. Fuck you. Fuck you. And I say it in love. You know, Dave Winfield, great friend of my family. Great friend. I love Uncle Dave to death. Dave done, borrowed me some money when I needed it. Dave Winfield's a great, great person. St. Paul legend. I love Dave to death. Very good friends with Magic Johnson. But fuck you, Magic. In love, you want to talk about it? Be my guest. I would love to. Anytime, any fucking place, because this shit is serious now. And all you black people got to understand this. All you black people got to understand it. You keep following these bourgeois sellouts, you're going to keep getting the same results you've been getting. This is what Malcolm X said. And you ask all these celebrities about Malcolm X. That's a great litmus test. All you got to do is ask them about Malcolm X. If you want to know where they are on the issues and whether or not you should follow them or even listen to them, all you have to do is ask them about Malcolm X. How do they feel about Malcolm X? And I guarantee you they'll give you some nonchalant answer, some non-answer. Or they'll come right out and say he was radical. He was too radical. I'm telling you, they'll come right out and say it. If you ask them, go up and ask LeBron. Remember when LeBron James had Malcolm X's book at the press conference? And I think it was Taylor Rooks. Yeah, it's Taylor Rooks. I know Taylor Rooks. Been knowing her a long time. It was Taylor Rooks who asked LeBron James about Alex Haley's Malcolm X book, and he didn't really have much to say about it. Why? Why do you think that is? Ask any of these people. They like to wear the Malcolm X T-shirts. They like to piecemeal and a la carte pick out Malcolm X quotes to post online because it looks good. Then I'm down with the cause. I'm one of the brothers. But not when you're around the real brothers. See, I could actually go into Chicago, into the mosque, and talk about things substantively. I actually know Mustafa Farrakhan. Shout out to Lil Mustafa, to Mustafa Farrakhan Jr. We call him Lil Mustafa because his dad is Big Mustafa. But shout out to Mustafa Jr. Was with him this summer. I don't want to be blowing Mustafa's spot up or nothing like that, but I was with Mustafa out in front of the hotel at the Big Three when Donald Trump was shot. When the attempted assassination had, and I remember the look on Mustafa's face when he saw Donald Trump get up with the blood on the side of his face and he fist pumped and said, "Fight, fight, fight." I remember Mustafa Jr. said, "Oh, he just won the presidency right there." That was some of the most gangster stuff I've ever seen in my life. And he didn't mean gangster in a criminal way. He meant gangster in a tough, resilient, sort of defy all odds kind of way. And there's something there. And it hasn't really cultivated yet, but it's coming. It's coming, and it happens in pieces. They say the best way to get somewhere you want to be is slow. And it's been a slow walk. Oh, it's been a real slow walk for us black folks in this country. Real slow walk from the scam we had run on us in 1968 up until now. Real slow walk. Real slow walk. But guess what? About 60 years later, we're here. We're right on the brink of it. And it's not about Donald Trump. It's about Donald Trump's policies. It's about what he proved in his first term. It's about the ideas. It's about the failures of the Democrats and their false promises, of course. But it's not about Donald Trump personally. This is about you all. This is about black people in this country deciding they want something better for themselves. Better than to follow their celebrities and icons around like sad puppies into economic destitution. That's what this is about. This is about whether or not you actually want to live vicariously through your celebrities and your icons, or if you want to genuinely enjoy them on an artistic and entertainment basis when you can still go home to your own little kingdom of prosperity and well-being and economic security. That's what this is about. Aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of living vicariously through some rapper who's going to get shot 3 weeks from now because some other young black man and him got into some argument or beef about a bunch of nothing, and have your heroes and your icons and the people who you live your life to, the soundtrack of your life, getting killed year after year after year after year over nonsense, on drugs, getting drunk? This is, buying shit that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, buying diamond chains to floss on who? What do I need a diamond chain for? This vest right here is relatively expensive for your average American citizen. I mean, this is probably, $180. I don't know, maybe it was $200 or something like that. I got my gillet on, but it's kind of expensive, you could say, for your average American citizen. But I'd be damned if I bought a $2,000 Balenciaga jumpsuit. What the fuck are you buying Italian designer clothes for in the first place? You don't own shit. Kanye West told y'all you can call Aunt Kanye anti-Semitic. You can say he's crazy or whatever the fuck else. The real reason why Kanye West was attacked is simple. Kanye West was attacked because he pointed out the lunacy, the cultural lunacy of black people being more interested in brands and looking cool than land and being wealthy. And that's not an argument. It's not an argument. It's not a debate. It's not an opinion. It's not conjecture. It's not a conspiracy theory. The fact of the matter is we have a $1 trillion consumer base in this country, and half of y'all can't put together $500 cash in a crisis. Because the whole culture is a debt culture. The whole culture is spending beyond your means. The whole culture is flossing for the next person. Why do I want to? What am I for? Who? What does it get? What is it bringing you? What is it now? It's okay to have some nice things. I'm not telling you got to live like one of these weird, hippie liberals who, they want to live in a micro house. There's two sides of that spectrum. I don't want you to live in a micro house. A think to save energy. I don't want you to live in some micro house. I'm not saying that. It's okay to have some nice things. But what's the motivation? See, that's what you really got to get down to. What is the motivation? The motivation in our culture is that we believe in how things look. We believe in how it looks to others. That's what's been important to us. And it's even political. The reason I'm saying it's because it's tied into what we're talking about. It's political even. I got to look like I'm down for the cause, so I'm going to vote for a black woman because she's a black woman. Oh, I want my daughters to be able to think that they can what? That they could be fucking sellouts? You want our young black women to believe the only way they can reach the highest office of the United States government is to prosecute black men for petty drug crimes in her own state, as to give her political capital to move on to the next office and eventually become the vice presidential candidate solely based on the color of her skin and not the merit of her ideas or her intelligence? That's what we want for our young black women? That's the black girl magic? That's the Meg Thee Stallion black girl magic, huh? Meg Thee Stallion, raunchy, ratchet ass, drunk ass, on drugs, out here living bogus as hell. Don't forget about the Tory Lanez thing now. Yeah, and what Tory, and I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what happened or not, but what I can say is whatever was going on in their relationship was so dysfunctional and toxic and ugly and based on the wrong shit that it led to whatever that outcome was. And eventually, as to is the plan for all you niggas, Tory Lanez ends up in jail for 10 years. Life changed forever. Career may be ruined, and they call on Meg Thee Stallion. How dare y'all? How dare y'all act like whatever went on there, Meg Thee Stallion wasn't culpable in? And to see another black man saying that, this is a symptom of the whole culture. This is what I'm talking about. This is why black men are jetting the fuck out on y'all. Because this is how you do them. How is it that we're going to never fucking forget, you bourgeois sellout Negroes and your white liberal co-conspirators gave Cardi B a Woman of the Year award, and she openly bragged on Instagram Live or in public about drugging and having sex and robbing black men. Let's talk about it. You want to know why black men aren't fucking with Kamala Harris? Let me tell you. It stems all the way back to you dumb motherfuckers giving Cardi B Woman of the Year award, and she was on the record bragging about back in the day in the streets, working as a prostitute and a stripper, drugging men, raping men, basically drugging them, having sex with them, and robbing them. And you gave her a Woman of the Year award. And you want to act like you're the moral judge. Like what you're upholding is some ethical. Get the fuck out of here. And you ran the same thing back with Meg Thee Stallion. And I'm not saying that Meg Thee Stallion can't continue her life and, have a career and whatnot. But the first black woman to potentially be president and the first campaign event y'all kick that shit off with is Meg Thee Stallion getting up on stage and bragging about the same ratchet-ass behavior that had a man or has a young black man sitting in prison now. I'm a savage. Ratchet. Come on, man. And you want to know why black men are abandoning the party? Because some of us black men don't want our daughters acting like that. And, there's some spiritual work that we got to do. There's some character work. I'm sorry, I get hyped up about the shit. And you see me, I am actually from a block where they sold crack. So when I get a little too ramped up, I revert back to the way that I was raised and how we talked around the house. And there's nothing wrong. This is what I'm saying about Kamala Harris. There's nothing wrong with aspiring to talk in a way that exemplifies a higher level of understanding and intelligence and substance. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. We want to inspire more young people to talk in a way that reflects their aspiration to a higher level of thinking and a more substantive worldview. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is you all are trying to promote the same sort of ratchet, degenerate behavior, that you're going to use against black folks in the end. And you will. That's what makes it dishonest when Kamala does it. Kamala Harris is trying to imitate a sort of cultural sickness that she then also benefited from prosecuting. That's the dishonesty in it. That's the dishonesty in it. Absolutely. Ugly. Disgusting. It's actually disgusting. When people say cringe, that's what they mean. That's what makes it. It's not authentic. It ain't genuine. It ain't how she's talking. It's who's talking. It ain't genuine. There's nothing genuine about it. And we come to the P. Diddy scandal. Again, I got to draw back down on this P. Diddy scandal. And it's just, it's just indicative of the whole culture. Root and branch. And all you black men out there, better take note of what's going on right here with P. Diddy. Now, as far as P. Diddy goes, weird dude. Could tell he was a weird dude because he was too interested in how his life looked to everybody else and what he was willing to do in order to further his own radical materialist goals. That was obvious. Anybody could see that from a mile away. And there's a lot of you other people out here who we can see it on too. You're way too interested in money. Money's too important to you. When money's too important to you, it's a problem. We all know that. If you don't know that, then you probably would do well to go and check that Bible. Oh, yeah, you need to go and get in that Bible Because, all money ain't, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. None of us are perfect. All of us have flaws and are going to make mistakes and sin and need repentance. But there's a difference between people who are struggling and combating the sin that they deal with, and they do it from a basis of even believing that forgiveness is a necessity, and people who reject God completely and will do anything for their own good, for their own selfish desires. There's a difference there. See, and this is what separates Christians and non-Christians. At least Christians believe that forgiveness is necessary. And when you live of that fear that somebody's watching, it does tend to taper your behavior. When you think you're not accountable or responsible to anybody, you end up doing shit like that. So P. Diddy's a weird dude. He's been off kilter for a long time. We all been watching it. Plus, it appears that he's had a problem with drugs and alcohol for a very long time. If you can't tell when somebody's getting drunk publicly, then I don't know what to say to you. I can tell. He was getting way too drunk. He was doing way too many drugs. He was having way too many parties and all that. So the dude's a weird dude. Living out of pocket, no doubt about it. But let's not pretend like this all isn't a projection of our own inadequacies, because it is. We want to use him as a scapegoat. We want to string him up and burn him at the stake as a scapegoat for our own sexual perversions and deviancies, or let's just say the sexual perversion that has become the norm in our society. And you black men better watch this. You better watch this. They tell you all. Hey, let me get up close. I want you to hear me. They tell you all that any manner of sexual perversion is permissible unless you're one of the most successful black people in the culture, and then it'll be a downfall. Oh, ain't it crazy? Ain't it crazy to see, on one hand, they lift Lil Nas X up, and on the other hand, they bring P. Diddy down. And I don't agree with any of them. In fact, I remember when P. Diddy was out there in front promoting how proud he was of Lil Nas X, which said something then. I mean, you again, like I said earlier in the podcast, you can say what gay or grown folks do in the privacy of their home, in the privacy of any place, as a group, even as grown adults, is y'all's business. And it's your right. You can do what you want to do as a grown adult. Nobody's really questioning that or should be questioning that. However, what Lil Nas X was positioned to become as a cultural icon for these young people, and what he was promoting, has quantifiable negative impacts on the same community that they're selling to. And that is that black men in this country who are gay or homosexual have to have a 50% chance lifetime of contracting HIV. So it's actually a health matter. It's actually a matter of disease and public safety, public health. Oh yeah, to promote homosexuality for black, they have not yet curbed the lifetime contraction rate for black men who engage in homosexual activity. They have not curbed that HIV contraction rate whatsoever. It's been 50% for a long time. It's still 50%. That hasn't changed. All the medicine they have and the commercials and the gender studies that they're teaching now in the grade school, none of that has changed the HIV contraction rate. So to continue to push it and promote it, especially through somebody who was as popular as Lil Nas X, is actually a matter of public health. And I remember P. Diddy stepping up then and saying, Lil Nas X, I'm proud of you. We support you. You can live how you want to live. Love is love. Well, now we see that wasn't really based in love. It was based in something else. Yet and still, I'll say it again, all of y'all better watch. The same thing they tell you is permissible is the same thing they're going to use to punish you. Build you up to bring you down, to tear you down. That's what they did to P. Diddy. They told him that was okay to do. They told him it was permissible. In fact, they made him believe it's what he needed to do in order to be accepted. It's what he needed to do in his position to be accepted by the industry and the power around him. You got to accept the LGBTQ. You got to accept homosexuality and this sort of a pornographic sexual lifestyle. You have to live in that. If you don't live in that, we don't really trust you because you're not a part of our broader agenda. You might have some ideas about things that aren't really in alignment with what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm not defending them. I'm really not. I'm just showing you how the game goes. This is how the game goes. Every inch of Hollywood and the mainstream media is riddled with pushing satanic, demonic, sexual perversion and propaganda. Every inch of it. And it's worse now than ever. And this is what I'm saying. You know, baby oil, whatever the fuck he had in his house or his houses or, now the child sex trafficking thing, that's a whole different level. That's a whole different level. And if evidence comes forward and he's found guilty on those charges of child sex trafficking, obviously that's where most sane people should draw a clear and distinct line, upgrade in degree of severity. In how we look at it from a cultural standpoint and the jurisprudential implications and repercussions. Of course, anytime you start dealing in child sex trafficking, we're on a different level now, obviously. But the man had baby oil in his house. It's just like the Bill Cosby thing. And this is what I'm saying. This is why black men are leaving the Democrat Party. You may not like it. You may not want to hear it, but it's true. We watched y'all crucify Bill Cosby for drugging, allegedly drugging women who admitted that they had been at his house before, who had taken drugs before, who had, willfully engaged in that type of activity before, just to turn around and say that it wasn't consensual. Not to mention living in an era where, for example, Quaaludes and those sleeping pills, that was the norm. And we all know it. You turn around and you make a movie about it. Wolf on Wall Street, that everybody loved, was a huge box office hit, and it continues to be a hit. Mostly because people who lived in that era remember the time when the parties were like that, where they were breaking out Quaaludes and just right out in the open. Same way now they're breaking out cocaine and Percocets right out in the open. Nothing's changed. The drug of choice has changed. The act and the culture has not changed. And that's just not regarding black people or black culture. But it is specific to Hollywood and entertainment culture for sure. But we watched you crucify Bill Cosby, and then you turn around and give Cardi B a Woman of the Year award, and she actually robbed him at the end. She did the exact same. She bragged about doing the exact same thing he did as a woman, only in the end, she robbed the dude. She's robbing the black men after, and y'all are defending her. Oh, she's a woman, all the stuff she has to deal with, That's what women have to deal with. Look at what women have to do to try and rise up in society. Really? You telling my single black mother who raised me on her own and paid our rent with her tips from standing on her legs for 10 fucking hours, doing eyebrows and makeup and facials, you're telling my black mother, single black mother, that in order to rise up in society in a way that's substantive and meaningful, that she should be aspiring to or looking up to or celebrating? A young black woman who's bragging about drugging a man, having sex with a man, and then robbing him? You people done lost your motherfucking minds. And I say, look, you brought Meg Thee Stallion up there, you're promoting the same thing, and you want me to tell my daughters that they should look up to that shit? Oh, fuck you, Barack. Fuck you, Barack. Fuck you, Michelle. Fuck you, Kamala. Finocchio Doug, the husband Doug. Meg Thee Stallion. Magic Johnson. Steph Curry, LeBron James. Any of you, fuck y'all. Fuck y'all. because you want it both ways. You want to pretend like you're this, high society, elitist, sophisticated. Let's go out and drink Merlot. Let's go out to the restaurant and spend $10,000 on Sauvignon Blanc. You want to pretend like you're a part of this wine society. But really underneath, all you promoting and celebrating is degeneracy. You can't have it both ways. You want to listen to you want to drink wine and listen to Beethoven, or you want to listen to Meg Thee Stallion. You can't have it both ways. The two cultures aren't compatible. They're not. They're not compatible. One culture is taking one culture and selling it to another culture to their own fucking demise, and black people are starting to figure it out. Yeah, you high society, wine society, white liberals, and bourgeois black folks are taking one culture and selling it back to another culture to their own demise, and that's why black people are leaving the Democrat Party. Because we're tired of watching people who talk about what it means to be black while they live behind gated communities with their white liberal friends. You go down to Lake Calhoun if you're here in Minneapolis or Minnesota. Go down to Lake Calhoun and drive around Lake Calhoun, some of the most expensive property in all of Minnesota, and you're going to find Harrison Waltz signs. Why? Because if inflation doesn't hurt, they don't feel it. They don't feel the cost of bread changing. No, it doesn't make any difference to them. But those black mothers who they want to prop up as the poster children of their political movement, it's crushing you. Go out there to Lake Minnetonka. Go drive around Lake Minnetonka, some of the most expensive property in the entire Midwest region right there on Lake Minnetonka. And I guarantee you see more Harris Waltz signs than you see Trump Vance signs. And that's for a reason, because the economic policies of these Democrats ain't affecting them. They can survive it. The rich can always survive inflation a lot of the times. Sometimes even the rich can't survive inflation, and that's a whole nother level. But a lot of the times, the people who have stocks and bonds and 401ks and own their own house and have equity in their house, and they can survive economic instability. They can survive a volatile housing market. They own their house. They'll refinance their house. They got cash. They got cash flow. They got bank notes and bank loans. They can work the system. You can't. You single black women that they are hanging the entire party on, you single black women are getting fucking crushed. You're getting fucking crushed by inflation. You single black women working 2 fucking jobs, driving Uber Eats just to make ends meet, you're getting fucking crushed. God damn. I hate to say it, God forgive me, but damn. You're getting fucking pillaged by these policies. And that is the greatest indictment of that movement. That's the greatest indictment of the party. It's the greatest indictment of our culture and our communities. It's the greatest insult to your intelligence. You black women out there you got it right. Oh, you got it right. Let me tell you how the scam is really what. God, man, it just is brutal. I can barely even get it out. It's so fucking brutal. You black women have systematically been put in a position to be alone and take care of children on your own. The incentive for you to get government aid and government and being involved in government programs to make ends meet is based on not having men in the house since the 1960s. Those were the early Democrat policies that took a thriving and growing Black America in working wages and entrepreneurship and started to bring them down into economic destitution. At the same time, they tell you the best way for you to have economic prosperity is to not have any children. Don't have any kids. Don't have any kids because of fucking climate change. They did a study, and there are actually women, not black women, for the most part, at least from the numbers I looked at. It wasn't black women saying this, but there are women who are actually saying they don't want to have children because of climate change. You're alone with kids that you can't really afford. Then they tell you not to have kids because of climate change. Then they want you to work. They want you to work 2 to 3 fucking jobs just to be able to pay for some 2-bedroom apartment that the cost is inflated beyond belief. And if you can't live in an area where the rent is inflated, because they're still gonna let the corporations inflate the fucking rent on you, because why not? I mean, it's still a money game, still monopoly. No. It costs more to live here. It's the area. It's the schools. It's the crime rate. It's the property value. It costs more to live in this affluent area. So you can't go live there. You got to go live in the neighborhood, the same fucking neighborhood they're pumping trans, and I don't mean transgender. I'm talking about trance music into, where people are robbing and killing each other. And that's where you got to go live, because that's the only place you can afford to live. And when it's all said and done, they're going to bring illegal immigrants with violent records and histories that nobody can track or knows about, and they're going to bring them into your community and let them live right next to you, and they're going to pay them to live there. They're going to pay criminals, illegal immigrants, some of which are criminals, not all, but some of which are criminals. They're going to pay illegal immigrants who are criminals to come and live next door to you. And you're paying for it. Are you fucking kidding me? It keeps me up at night that you black women are still voting for these people. It actually keeps me up, and I'm so proud that my mom is finally starting to see what the fuck is going on, and she's understanding, she's listening to the podcast, she's opening her mind to listening to other people, and actually taking some critical thought to politics, specifically the party politics. Always been a critical thinker, but they protect this political bubble, the political narrative, that political bubble. They've done well to protect that. Sophisticated work they've done with that propaganda, and it's all to cater to black women. Black women are the bedrock of the Democrat Party, which is why they ran Kamala Harris, and black men are fleeing, and they want to blame us instead of looking at their own policies. This has been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGate.com. I hope you enjoyed the new intro. I like it. The band is Phantom Taxi. If you want to know, Phantom Taxi is good band. You can go download their music on iTunes. That song is actually not released, so you can't get that song yet. Maybe we'll have my Phantom Taxi boys put that up on iTunes so you can download the song if you like the intro song. But I hope you like the intro video. We're trying to add some more things to the show in anticipation of doing a call-in show in the very near future, and just trying to add more elements to the show to make it more professional and make it better. We can try and make the show as good as we can. But we know we're being throttled by YouTube, because people don't want, they don't want people. Somebody asked me the other day, I don't know how you don't get more traction, how you don't have a bigger following. The entire system at a spiritual and cultural level, in the algorithm, penalizes people who talk too real. Number one, if you talk real enough, it's going to take you some time. You can't talk in 15-second sound bites, or it's difficult. And even the people who are going viral now and they're saying things and in these 15-second sound bites, you're like, oh yeah, that was some real shit. Okay, but it's fleeting. It doesn't really help you shape your worldview. This is why when you do a presidential debate, or back in the day in the 1960s when a Malcolm X would go to a Berkeley or somewhere like that, you got to sit down and talk for an hour, because the substance of a conversation can't really come to the surface unless you're willing to take the time. Anything that's great that you want, usually you get to slowly. The things you want the most, if it's good, if it's valuable, the things you want the most, usually you get too slow. It's like how I came to think about, understand these things and think about slow. Took time. Took time to formulate my worldview, took time to be able to reference certain material and certain cultural markers and history to be able to synthesize 1 hour and 49-minute podcast with no notes. Part of it is just speaking the truth. There's some of it is that. But part of it was writing my life story down, writing my life story down into a book. I had to write my own life story down into a book and organize what had happened in my own life and go back and reference that and think about it and think about what I think about it, if that makes sense. And think about what actually happened in my life. Can I recall? Then it's, what do I think about what happened in my life? What are my opinions on it now? And then it's, what are the implications? What were the institutions? What were the things that led to? What were the fundamentals here in this story? Which is why when they use Kamala Harris to try and basically emotionally strong arm the black vote, I got to stand up and say, fuck you. Fuck you. Black men are saying no thanks. And good for them. Amen. Rejoice. Rejoice. The truth is coming to light. People are starting to see for the first time in 60 years. Kamala Harris represents a 60-year low in support from black men ages 18 to 44. That's my generation, and I'm a shining example of why, because we think a little different. We're not going for the bullshit anymore. And Barack Obama can go fuck himself too, and all these other black bourgeois celebrities and sellouts. It ain't working. That's the other thing. It's not about what I'm saying. You can use me as a scapegoat as well. You can say, oh, well, Royce, you're brash and we don't like you because you say this or you say that, and that's why we're not voting for you. You could do what you want to do. But the writing's on the wall. The writing on the wall is, I'm right. Steve Bannon was right. Donald Trump's opened up the floodgates. You all were wrong. You played fast and loose with the truth. You got a little bit too You got a little too relaxed with the control, and the truth sprang out. And the truth is hard to suppress. And that's another thing with the arrogance of you all. You think you can suppress the truth. It's very, very difficult to suppress the truth. Very fucking difficult. To suppress the truth indefinitely is in rejection of God himself. And that is the worst position to be in. To try and suppress the truth indefinitely is in rejection of God himself, and ultimately you will lose. You will lose. You're losing now. That's why you're desperate. That's why you're sending Magic fucking Johnson to Detroit. Like, how insulting is that? How much of an insult is it that they think they can run Magic Johnson to Detroit, Michigan to try and save the election in the swing state because, what, he's from Michigan? Because he played at Michigan State? Because he played for Los Angeles Lakers? Because he's a Hall of Fame basketball player? Because he owns some movie theaters and some fast food restaurants like Starbucks? Who are poisoning you, by the way. Let's not forget that the movie theater is poisoning your mind through propaganda, but the Starbucks is poisoning your mind, your body through the food. All that processed coffee, that shit is terrible for you. But I'm not saying you should close down your restaurant. I'm saying, who's the only movement in this country right now that invited somebody in who actually wants to address the systemic issues with our food, the unhealthiness of our food, fundamentally. The food industry, part of the medical industrial complex, the food industry. So isn't it crazy? I knew there was something off. When you go to the dentist and they tell you sweets are bad for your teeth and your health, and then on the way out of the office, they give you a sucker. And even if it's sugar-free, you're putting that thought in your mind that candy is good. You want some candy. It's when you after being at the dentist, when you're nervous and people don't like going to the dentist and having people in their mouth and whatnot, on your way out to cheer you up, here's some candy. It's just like them telling you young black women, don't vote for Donald Trump because his business went bankrupt, because his company or a company went bankrupt. The government is the only business in human history that can forcibly extract unlimited money from the people and still go fucking bankrupt. The fight continues. Don't die a jerk off. The people are coming. Godspeed.